Spoilers?
Check.
Mature language?
Check.
Should listeners be advised?
Check.
That invasion is here, Rhodey.
And we can't even tell who the invaders are.
This is a ticking time bomb. And it was you who lit the match.
You're the most wanted man on the planet.
Well, Mama always said I was special.
Nick Fury in Marvel Studios' Secret Invasion, streaming June 21st, only on Disney+.
The Marvel superheroes have arrived! Captain America!
Fantastic Four!
Hulk, Spider-Man! Iron Man!
Spider-Woman!
The God of Thunder!
Stan Lee presents Diabolu Frank, an illegal machine.
Before we do anything, I want to make it crystal clear. There's no fucking way we're doing a Secret Invasion episode of the Marvel Superheroes podcast. It's not fucking happening. So we're recording this, and it's going to end up being a segment in one of the magazines. And in fact, I'm even watching another backlog Marvel show to discuss that, knowing that there's no way we're going to do a whole episode on goddamn Secret Invasion. Just to get that out of the fucking way. Plus, we don't think there was a fix that has watched the show. So, you know, we're not getting an episode. So tell me this. Are you familiar with Secret War? No plural.
Singular.
Secret
No.
War, yes.
No.
So this was a
I am
miniseries.
vaguely aware of some of the Secret Invasion stuff in
Yeah.
the Marvel Universe.
So Secret War was a miniseries. I think that Gabriel Del Auto painted it back when people still painted comic books, which is almost not a thing anymore because nobody gets paid enough to paint a comic book anymore.
Right.
And then Brian Bendis wrote it. And it was basically about Nick Fury going out and having these conflicts that related to a Skrull invasion and working with guys like Spider-Man and Wolverine to kind of counter that. And then ultimately he puts together a group that they dubbed the Secret Warriors, where it's like metahumans that help him to fight off the Skrull invasion. But that happens in Secret Invasion. And I don't remember who drew Secret Invasion. I just remember they had a bunch of Greg Horn posters and they made a big deal about who can you trust and look Skrull integration into society and shit like that. But I don't remember who actually drew the shit. And there was a thought that they were going to bring back a bunch of characters or reveal a bunch of characters were actually Skrulls this whole time. I know at one point they had like a Power Man show up, the one with the headband and the yellow, because Bendis had spent several years turning Luke Cage into a very different character than he had been from the blaxploitation roots and stuff. And he had him marry Jessica Jones. They had a baby and shit. And so there's some thoughts like, oh, he's going to go back to the original Power Man. Like, no, it's just another fucking Skrull. And then they thought like, are they going to bring back Captain Marvel, the Marvel character? It's like, no, it turned out to be a Skrull who was like a variation of the Super Skrulls that had a little more power, or maybe he had the quantum bands, but he was actually a Skrull. So they didn't bring Captain Marvel back. The one guy that Marvel doesn't bring back, thankfully.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the only big change was they brought back Mockingbird, Bobby Morse, who'd been dead since the early 90s of Avengers West Coast leading into Force Works, despite the fact that I think Avengers West Coast 100 had them go to hell and be battling Lucifer to try to get Mockingbird's soul, but apparently that was a Skrull soul that they were working towards. And
Really?
yeah, and so the Bobby Morse that got her own series, and they had the whole ask me about my feminist agenda shirt and all that kind of good shit, that was the real Bobby that had been captured by Skrulls, and that's really the only thing that came out of that shit.
Yeah.
But also you had the Secret Warriors, and that includes Daisy Johnson, Quake, who of course got adapted into Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and became one of the major characters in that show.
Got it.
But otherwise, Secret Invasion wasn't shit as a comic book, and nobody really liked it, and it didn't make a lot of logical sense. And now we have Secret Invasion, the TV show, and Nick Fury finally has its own starring vehicle. The closest we've ever had to that in the past was Winter Soldier, where Nick Fury carries the first 15-20 minutes of the movie, very much the way Agent Maria Hill was one of the major figures in the early parts of Avengers, just like Clint Barton and Nick Fury took up a good chunk of the beginning of that movie. But of course, Nick Fury in Winter Soldier is way fucking cooler than Maria Hill and company in Avengers.
Well, he kind of co-stars Captain Marvel. Nick
Right,
Fury.
right. That's true too. That's
Yeah,
true too.
It's like a buddy
Yes.
cop movie kind of.
Yeah. But he's clearly a supporting character to Captain Marvel in that, where in the early parts of Winter Soldier, it's about him and him dealing with S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff. It's like, you know, there's a little Cap in there, but Cap's got a cameo before he really starts his own story. So going into Secret Invasion, did you have, like, okay, so before this show came out, I was in Copenhagen and Denmark and traveling around, and what I found really interesting, Flash definitely got more attention. There was like a gigantic advertisement on the side of a building for the Flash in the middle of town and stuff. But everywhere else I went, whether it was their metro system or their train system, in the metros they had videos, and they would cycle through a bunch of videos. At the train station, they had those ones where it rotates, and so it's like it goes in one direction, then it reverses and goes the other direction. And every single time you saw Flash, and then you saw Secret Invasion. They were always paired up in this town. So there was almost a sense of like, because already the buzz was bad on Flash, and there's already a sense it was going to be a flop. So you got the sense of Marvel trolling the Flash by having Secret Invasion. But then, of course, ultimately the reaction is that they're both among the worst things that either company has produced in their shared universes. So going into Secret Invasion, did you have high hopes? Did you think it was going to be a good show?
No, I didn't have high hopes because the basis of the movie was off of Captain Marvel. And like, you know, when I'm seeing Gravik is like, and I'm like, oh, I don't give a shit about any of this. Like, I don't fucking care about Nick Fury was up on Saber this whole time and he's coming down to Earth. Like, I don't give a shit about that. And, you know, there's just, it's kind of like the comics. There's sort of a lack of the ability to really do anything groundbreaking in these TV shows. Like, it's not going to turn out that fucking Tony Stark was a Skrull who snapped and Tony Stark's still out there. You know, like, that shit's not going to fucking... Robert Downey Jr. is not going to pop up in this show, right? But the fact that Don Cheadle was going to be in it a lot, I kind of was saving some... Like, maybe this is going to lead into Armor Wars even or something. You know, I don't know what they're doing with this shit. So I was kind of curious. I like that it was going to be a Samuel L. Jackson joint because I tend to like things Samuel L. Jackson's in. Even if it's bad, if he's on the screen, it's usually at least pretty entertaining.
He's one of our favorite actors.
Yeah, and so I thought, you know, at least we're going to get some episodes of watching Sam Jackson on the fucking thing. So, you know, how bad could
some cool spy shit.
Cool spy shit. There is some, is the person he's talking to a Skrull or not a Skrull? I'm sure that's going to happen half a fucking dozen times, which it did. So, yeah, I was cautiously optimistic, but stressed the cautiously.
Now, you waited a few weeks before you watched it, though.
Yeah.
Like, did you even, had you started it by the time the conclusion had aired?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So
I think we watched it.
You were aware of the significant backlash to the conclusion of the miniseries? You weren't aware?
Not of the conclusion. I was I knew people were not digging it. Mm-hmm. But then I would kind of click on like a comment section, which I should stop doing that. Mm-hmm. And mostly it was generally like, I like it. Like, why is everybody so negative about this? I think it's kind of cool. I'm enjoying it. Blah, 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 blah. So then I'm like, you know, well, maybe it's getting review bombed, or maybe, you know what I mean? I was leaving the door open. Yeah. There was enough conflicting stuff out there that I was able to keep an open mind.
Like, I was on social media and I was critical of the show for the 5 episodes. And usually what would happen is I'd say something critical, not fully outright negative. And I at no point was like, I hate this fucking shit. I just was like, increasingly over the course of the episodes, like, this isn't really shaping up to be what I'd hoped it would be. And it's a little underwhelming. And there'd be people jumping in and saying, no, I like it. It's pretty good. And then the finale came out and there was still like, people didn't like the finale, but they were still kind of defending the show. And I went on Twitter and they were like ripping the shit out of it. They were just ripping it to shreds the night that it aired. Because I had this thing that was going on where I kept forgetting about it, which is not a great sign of how much I'm enjoying it. Like, I would watch it and I didn't hate it. It wasn't like a slog or anything, but I just wasn't very engaged. And so I watched the premiere, I think the night of, and then for several weeks afterwards, I kept forgetting. And there's like, yeah, Secret Invasion came on the other day, and we would watch it Thursday nights instead because I was just literally forgetting that it was on. And then toward the end, I was like, okay, well, there's probably gonna be something spoilery. I got to make sure I watch at least the last episode on time because something's gonna get, you know, out there. And so I watched it that Wednesday night, and then I went on one of my smaller social media circles where people were a little bit more kind to it, and I'm like, no. I know this isn't the general reaction. This is fans that are being, you know, giving it some slack, and go on Twitter and they were just fucking annihilating the show.
So, we want to just talk about what
just talk about it.
So, it starts out.
Why did you even decide to watch it?
We ran out of things to watch.
Okay.
So we knew that with only being 6 episodes, and honestly, we checked the run times.
Yeah, they didn't
which
have
is not
any,
a good
90
sign
minute
either.
shit. Yeah.
No, I think the first one we ought to have been like 50 something, and after that they got down in the 30s. Especially like the last couple episodes, like 35 minutes each, right? And I'm like, okay, we can knock out like 2 of these a night, maybe even 2 and then 4, right?
Which is an interesting premise because I was talking to you guys on text messaging over the course of the series as it was coming out, and I think Fix It asked me how it was, and it's like, I'm okay with watching an episode a night. I couldn't do 2 in a row. There's no way I'm just engaged enough to get through an episode a week. I'm not shotgunning this shit. That's part of why I kept watching it week after week, a day or so late, because I did not want to try to catch up at any point and watch 2 in a row.
Yeah, but at some point it was like, if we don't watch these in a row, we're not coming back to this show. Like, it's not happening. So we kind of like made a blood pact. Like, we're finishing this over the next 3 days. Like, we're going to do like 2-2-2, or we're going to do 2-1-3 or something like that, which is kind of what we did. I think we did 2-1-3. So the one thing that I really look, Sam Jackson was okay in it, but I don't know if you mentioned this. So it has the AI openings, right? And or if I read this somewhere, that it felt like the show was written by AI because I couldn't like follow the dialogue sometimes. Like, I feel like two people would have an entire conversation in a room, and I would sit there and think in my head, like, what did they just fucking say? Like, I don't.
What was communicated by this scene?
Yeah, well, no, but even that, where it's like, it's almost like when you hear somebody from a foreign language do karaoke, but they're not doing karaoke, they're singing the song but they don't actually know English, but they're saying the words. And at like a tertiary, glance, you're like, oh, I know exactly what song they're singing. And then you listen a little closely to the words, and they're not actually saying like English words. They're making the sounds that they hear when they listen. They've heard the song so many times. That's what this show sounded like to me, where they would have a whole conversation. I'm like, they said a lot of like words about, like espionage words, but I don't know if they actually completed a sentence in the entire scene. Where they're saying there's like they'll say like a metaphor, and then someone says a metaphor back. And I'm like, I don't know if either of those made any sense with the context of this conversation you're having. It was just...
kind of like with comics, you'd have somebody who read a book or watched a movie, and then they did a comic book that was based on that material, and then somebody read the comic, and then they try to do another comic based on the adaptation of the comic of the other material, and it becomes this telephone game where less and less is appropriately communicated until it just becomes babble.
You wrote your book report on the movie.
Right.
Not the movie adaptation.
Right.
Yeah. And then the other thing that just struck me was like, God damn, there's a lot of talking in this show. Like, a lot of talking. And not a lot of action. I mean, maybe you got one action beat per episode. Maybe. But and I understand it's secret invasion, but it's literally like, it's talky invasion. I mean, and then, you start seeing the numbers floated around for the budget for this show that was like $240 million. And it was like, that was more than Barbie and more than Oppenheimer for this fucking television show. And I'm like, where did they spend the money? Was that all to pay Sam Jackson? And
they saved all that money on not animating the front opening sequence, because they were talking about that. They're trying to defend as like, nobody lost their jobs to this. We just did the AI opening sequence. You still see credits. It's like, and then the CGI people would come in. They say, well, the credits would be this many names long if it was animated, and instead it's this many names long because it's AI instead. So all those people that aren't in the credits didn't get paid because they didn't work on that. So yes, it does have a human impact when you do this shit. And of course they said, oh no, there's a choice because we're trying to reflect the alienness. And it's like, well, you're not doing a Skynet show, you're doing an alien show. So using AI, it doesn't reflect what aliens would think like. You just were using it as a bud cut because you knew it was going to be weird shit. And so you used the weird shit opening because it was cheaper.
Yeah. Other problems with the show, like, well, these are just kind of inherent problems with the Skrulls. They don't really make any fucking sense. Are the clothes changing with them? Do the clothes not change with them? It's just... You can't think about it too hard, and when the whole show is about Skrulls, it's just really obvious that it's kind of a bunch of bullshit powers, and really these people could just take over the whole fucking planet if they were that good at this.
Well, they kind of do. I mean, we find out that several countries are being run by Skrulls, which I'm sorry, if I'm living in like the UK or France or something, I would be kind of offended that it was okay for my country to be taken over by Skrulls. It's way more likely that the US would be taken over by a Skrull,
Well, until you see that, like, if you just shoot one in the leg, they can't maintain their form anymore. They turn it. Well, it's like you could go around and just start clubbing people in the fucking knee, and we're gonna find all the Skrulls.
But they're not
really
looking for
fast.
Skrulls. Is the whole thing? They think there's a few dozen Skrulls total on the planet
at the beginning.
Right.
So anyway, it's just lots of problems.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the plot itself then starts to fall apart because not whatever plot there fucking was, right? the scene where they're like they plant that bomb in that square and it goes off, and it's like Nick Fury is 10 feet from this bomb, and then they say in the newscast in the next episode that like 6,000 people died. And it's like, what the fuck? There was like 40
people.
There were 40 people on that set. What do you mean thousands and thousands of, like, triple 9/11 happened?
Right.
Nick Fury was 10 feet from this fucking bomb and he just fell over. Like, again, that's where I'm like, where was the $200 million? Because that was a bullshit.
Well, and clearly it was made under COVID conditions, and I'm sure that's part of where the expense went to, but still.
Maria Hill dies. Who fucking cares? cares? That was like the biggest who fucking cares moment. But also, because the show is nothing but Skrulls, you can't even buy into the fact that she actually died because the whole fucking
the whole
show
time
is
you're waiting
about...
for them to come back and say,
Right.
"Oh no, it was a fake out."
And then by the end of the fucking show, you forgot that she died. And it's like, well then there's no real payoff except for, and then there's the scene where like her mom bitches Nick Fury out, and you're like, what are we even watching here?
Yeah, well, because again, the last conversation of substance that Maria Hill has with Nick Fury was chastising him for abandoning the world after Winter Soldier and fucking off to a satellite for all these years. Well, actually, it wasn't that. It was after the snapping, after the blip. When he came back from the blip, he didn't do anything after that, right? And so she's telling him, you know, you're old, you're incompetent, you don't need to be here. You should just let us handle it. You're gonna fuck everything up because you've been absentee for years now. And then she's fucking dead, right? And then again, the next episode, they're in the UK and her mom's British. And I'm already like, was that a thing? Why is her mom British? I don't even understand.
Was she British?
Yeah, she was speaking with an accent.
Are you sure?
Yeah, she was speaking with an accent. I'm like, why are we in, like, because we were in St. Petersburg or whatever, and then we've gone to the UK, and it's like, why is Maria Hill English? I don't understand this. But also, her last words of note are telling Nick Fury he isn't worth a shit. And then the next episode, her mom's telling him that she's not worth a shit. And also because they go through the trouble of going to the funeral, not the funeral, but turning over the body to the mom, you're like, wow, they're really hard selling this death. They're probably going to reverse this later on because the actual episode doesn't have any impact, and it's a dumb, embarrassing death that she has. She's just shot in the belly by a guy who looks like Nick Fury. You know, obviously this would be way more impactful. You know, you should have a moment like Rocket when he's crying for his friends with Nick Fury
And
losing his aide.
Shit.
Yeah. So they're going to come back this later on and address this like, oh, no, they didn't. We really did kill her. But they so failed to sell that death. And also, the death is tied into making Nick Fury look bad. So the two things you're waiting for is A, you're waiting for Nick Fury to have his redemption arc and prove that he is on top of his game and he is still a badass. And that Maria isn't even really dead anyway. She just did the same thing he did, the fake out from Winter Soldier. And it's like neither of those things ever happened. And you're like, wow, this thing is failing at just the most basic dramatic levels, especially for a heroic, like it's one thing if you're doing like Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy, you know, where, oh, it's supposed to be about the illusion of the Cold War and how everybody is negatively impacted by all this spy shit and everything like that. This is Marvel shit. This is fucking confection. And so if you're not like cheering at the end of the show, they done fucked up, right? But what's interesting about that too is I've never been a fan of Maria Hill. I like Kobe Smulders on How I Met Your Mother. I think she's good as Robin Scherbatsky. And then me and my girlfriend, whenever we're referring to her in the Marvel Universe, we still call her Robin Scherbatsky. As it happens, I've been running Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as background noise. Recently, I just restarted it from the beginning again just to have it on while I'm doing other stuff. And it's weird because having, you know, for me, those first few seasons were really hard to get through. And, you know, I was bitching about it the whole time I was watching it. But having gone through 7 seasons of this and gotten to know those characters and seen their arcs and everything, now when I catch episodes from the first season, because I'm invested in those characters now and I know where they end up, it will suck me in. And I forgot about how, toward the end of the season, after the big reveal about Hydra, how Nick Fury comes back and Maria Hill comes back.
Yeah, it went as expected. S.H.I.E.L.D. implodes and everyone wants answers. The CIA, NSA, NRO, them I can handle. But Congress? Congress is like kindergarten. Where is this fridge? What was in there? Who or what is a man thing? I swear I need a cocktail and a lobotomy. But apparently, my every move continues to fascinate them. Tonight's standard issue surveillance package includes fake yuppie, not checking her text at the bus stop, imposter homeless man, mildly offensive. And the hipster following me looks familiar. I think he's Russian or... Go on. Pepper, I'll call you back in 10.
We need to talk, Agent Hill.
May, a phone call would have done it. But I appreciate the discretion.
Thought you'd like the night off. They must hate that you're going to work for Stark.
Most of the intelligence community would like to drop me into a dark hole. But even they can't mess with Tony's army of lawyers. So, for now, we're privatizing global security. Want to join?
Coulson needs help. And he won't take it from me anymore.
Where is he?
Providence Base. And he's got enough to worry about without obsessing over Tahiti and who covered it up.
You mean besides us? How much does he know?
Enough. That they used alien biology, rewrote his memories, and that Fury did it under someone else's direction. I want to know who that was.
You're afraid it was Alexander Pierce?
Secretary Pierce was the man in charge. The only person Fury took orders from, and he was Hydra. Having a man like that design your brain, you can understand my concern.
Fury took his cues from pretty high up, that much I know. But when I asked him who it was, Fury said that he buried that intel when he decided not to bury Coulson.
Maria, this is not the time to wax poetic.
Those are his words, not mine. You knew the man. Sometimes he spoke in riddles.
Guess I'll have to solve it then. Unless you want to ask Fury for me.
Fury's dead.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Drop your weapon!
3 minutes and 20 seconds, really? If you were my agents, it wouldn't be for long.
And they're also setting up Age of Ultron. And there's this whole subplot where it feeds into the helicarrier in Age of Ultron. And it's like, oh yeah, I forgot all that shit, where it's really closely tied to the Marvel Universe stuff. And so Maria Hill has this whole sequence where...
It's not Hydra. It's Special Forces.
On behalf of the United States Armed Forces, I order you to stand down. I repeat, stand down.
Colonel Talbot? There have to be better things for you to do than chase 4 S.H.I.E.L.D. agents.
I wasn't a huge fan before chasing you to the damn tundra, Coulson. I wouldn't push it.
I'm flattered you came in person.
Fury's private base on North American soil? I just had to see it for myself.
If I come out, will you shoot me? Because then I won't come out.
Hold your fire, soldiers.
This is one of the most classified facilities on the planet, Colonel. How the hell did you find it?
I told them.
Sister, you haven't seen intimidation, and right now I'm your only friend. I'd be careful not to piss me off. The word agent implies that your corrupt organization still exists. Your leadership abandoned you for the private sector, and we're gonna allow that in exchange for valuable assets like yourself. So right now, I'd be thinking hard and fast about exactly what it is that makes you valuable.
I am offering you a lifeline here, Coulson. Don't thank me, just take it and we'll be on our way.
Don't see how thanks are in order, considering you just sold me out and led the U.S. military straight to Fury's secret base.
No, Phil. You led us straight to Fury's secret base as part of the deal we made.
You can't be serious.
You and I are going to turn over these abandoned tunnels to the U.S. government, who will be ever so grateful to take possession of an enemy stronghold in their backyard.
What about my team?
Well, they're going to have to go through the system. Interrogation.
Not going to happen.
Look, talk to Talbot. Cough up some meaningless intel about this place. Nothing significant, of course. Nothing about S.H.I.E.L.D's other installations.
You're still protecting your secrets. Is there anything specific you're afraid I'll talk about? Tahiti, maybe?
Phil.
I'm a liability? Is that it?
Grow up, Phil. Of course you're a liability. But I know you'll do the right thing.
The right thing. That's funny, coming from you, after everything you and Fury have done.
Look, it was for your own good.
For my own good, I know, I get it. You should have been straight with me. I would have kept your secrets like a good soldier, I always have. But instead, you were worried about me when you should have been worried about anyone else.
You're right. We should have seen Hydra coming. But after DC, they don't stand a chance.
John Garrett does.
Garrett, I heard Ward took care of him.
Ward's his secret weapon. He killed Victoria Hand, then raided the fridge, and now he's got Skye, which is where we were headed until you so rudely interrupted to sweeten your deal.
I vetted Ward.
You want to make this right? Stop wasting time.
The person she turns him into is Glenn Talbot, and that's when he's introduced into the series. So you've got Adrian Pasdar raiding this one S.H.I.E.L.D. base to capture Coulson and his people. He talks to her about this subplot where they're trying to put together the parts of the helicarrier and where they're trying to deal with a certain aspects of the story where the series is at. And she's like, oh shit, I fucked up. I screwed you guys. I'm going to try to fix it. And so they team up to battle Glenn Talbot and escape.
Maria Hill to S.H.I.E.L.D. 616. You have 30 seconds to stand down and surrender. surrender. I repeat, stand down and surrender. You gonna answer me, Ward, or do I have to come over there?
Maria Hill. Kinda hoped you went down with the Triskelion.
And I hoped you weren't the duplicitous lowlife you turned out to be, but here we are.
Gonna be honest with you, Hill. Having a pretty bad day. So if I were you, I would get the hell out of my way.
Give up Sky and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, that's not happening.
You know, I never liked you, Ward. Not since our first sit-down, but I never figured you for John Garrett's lapdog.
Well, a lot of us lost respect for Fury when he picked you as his second. If he needed eye candy around, he could have at least picked Romanoff.
That's funny. I'll tell her you said that. Now hand Sky over, I'll have a squad of F-16s knock you on your ass.
Even if you had that kind of pull anymore, which you don't, Coulson would never let you do it. He would never sacrifice Sky like that. But you know Garrett would. So don't try and follow us.
It doesn't have to go down like this, Ward. You don't owe Garrett anything.
You're wrong.
Oh yeah, she was working at Stark Industries for after Winter Soldier, so she's got all this shit where basically Stark's lawyers were able to keep her out of trouble, and she didn't have to like do some of the compromising shit that a lot of these other guys did, because a lot of these guys ended up going to prison from S.H.I.E.L.D. because of the ties to Hydra and some of the activities they were trying to do stuff. So it's like, oh wow, she was doing all this stuff with Tony Stark in that time period.
We'll need a base of operation, weapons, tactical backup. Who do you have working for you?
Okay, wait, hold on, Coulson. There is no more backup. No more hidden bunkers.
Oh, come on. I know Fury has others.
There's no Fury. We're not bringing the band back together again, Coulson. It's over. There is no S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore.
Well, not officially.
Look, I get it, okay? You have to take Ward and Garrett down. But don't act like it's some officially sanctioned mission. It's a personal vendetta, and when it's done, you should walk. Let your people go their separate ways.
And what? Turn themselves in? Cut a deal? Work in the private sector?
You know, Stark would take you in a heartbeat.
It's not my style.
I should go. You know where to find me.
Say hello to Stark for... Oh, yeah. Never mind. He thinks I'm dead.
So she has all these interesting stories we've never heard before and stuff. And again, she's helping Coulson to recover after she fucked him over and stuff. She's like, this is truly interesting stuff that Maria Hill's doing. And then you go into Secret Invasion and that character is just nothing. And then they kill her. And it's like, first season Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the stuff that we were all making fun of. And it just wasn't measuring up and everything. And this is network TV, not a $220 million miniseries. This is 22 episodes on a TV budget. It has more for Maria Hill to do and makes her a more engaging character than the fucking show she's dying in. And not only that, but then Nick Fury's in the final story because he's the one who helps save Coulson's team when several members of them are compromised and nearly die. And he's the one who comes in to help Coulson battle the final boss, the rogue agent played by Bill Paxton's character. And they're having repertoire and stuff. It's like Nick Fury's doing more in the season finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. than he's doing in a miniseries about him where he's the star. He's just a fucking guest star and he's got more interesting lines. And also, I gotta be honest with you, watching him in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 1, he's a little bit younger, he's a lot thinner, he doesn't have the stupid fucking hobo beard and stuff, even though he's already post Winter Soldier where he's the knit cap and all that kind of bullshit.
Sir? You don't have to call me Sir Coulson. Look at me. I'm dressed like I live under a bridge.
What are you doing here?
Well, Simmons turned me onto that old-timey tracker Fitz left on your bus. I went to great pains to make sure you didn't die the first time.
Well, now's probably not the best time, but... I'd like to have a lengthy conversation with you about that. It might get loud.
And I owe you that. But right now, we owe Garrett a punch in the teeth. Wouldn't you say?
Capable still, where you see him in Secret Invasion and he looks really over the hill. They make a point of telling you he's over the hill in the miniseries and then he never gets a redemption. So it's just goddamn embarrassing. The whole thing is like almost like shitting on Nick Fury for the entire miniseries and it never comes back from that. So it's sort of like, I understand how like the Secret Scarlet Witch fans probably felt watching WandaVision because they're showing all this trauma she's going through and you like grow to care for her and you understand why she's doing the things she's doing. And then you go into Multiverse of Madness and they just fucking brick her. You know, she's a total psycho murderess. And it's like, she's still our hero, even after WandaVision. We still sympathize with her. And now she's killing Professor X and shit. So that's what this was for Nick Fury. It's like, one of the problems with Phase 4, and now we're going into Phase 5 with this shit, is you're taking the people that you built up as great heroes and you're just fucking destroying them and dismissing them. And then fucking Shang-Chi and Miss Marvel are supposed to replace Iron Man and Captain America and Nick Fury. The fuck they are. They're not replacing Scarlet Witch even.
Sounds Star Wars.
Oh, well, like the Disney Plus Star Wars shit?
No, like they're the last three.
Oh, right.
Where it's all Luke
Skywalker is just some asshole on an island somewhere who's drinking blue milk straight from the teat. Here's fucking Ray.
Yeah. So that was not good.
Yeah.
The whole shit with the last couple episodes are real bad. When it gets into like the president and like that, like the motorcade gets blown up or whatever, and they're having that.
And they're gonna blame it on the Russians that are led by the black guy.
So they go down, they go, they're just like yelling Russian words out, and now they go like, it's the Russians. You can hear the Secret Service guys are like, it's Russia, it's the Russians, and it's just like, this is the stupidest fucking shit ever. Because they said some Russian words led by the black guy.
Right.
Like, why don't you just look like Putin? Like, what the fuck are you doing?
The black guy who gets shot in the face and recovers.
Yeah, right. And
who also stabs another green guy. It's like, wait, what?
And nobody knows. But what's weird is that just like Fury just drives up to it.
Right.
Like they just drive up to it and then get out of the car, and then there's like one group of guys shooting another group of guys, and Fury just like walks up beside him and they're shooting. It's like the worst it makes like,
and he's got like a shotgun and shit too, right?
It ain't Heat. Okay.
Yeah.
This is not Heat, right?
Yeah.
This is like one of the worst gun battles I've ever seen. And I don't know, again, maybe part of that was COVID, where like none of these people were actually near each other and they had to piece the footage together to make them look like they were near each other. But it just, I don't want to give it that much credit. Like, I think if the rest of the show wasn't so shoddily done, it was terrible.
I read one review and they said the word torpid. And I was like, what is torpid? I don't know this word. So I went and I looked it up in the dictionary, and torpid is defined as lethargic in action or thought. And I was like, fuck, dude, you nailed it. This shit is as torpid as shit I've ever fucking seen. From the rest of my life, when I hear the word torpid or think the word torpid, it's going to be like, what is torpid? Secret Invasion is torpid. It is the torpidest thing I've ever seen.
And if somebody asks you, hey, what the hell does that mean? You go, did you watch Secret Invasion? And they're like, oh shit, really?
Torpid.
Ooh, that bad. Huh?
I get that shit.
So then it gets even weirder, because then it's like, and all the roadie stuff was weird. Like, I know, and I appreciate that Don Cheadle was like acting.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want to act like Rhodey acts, so he sort of was like, he was almost like sassy.
I actually dug that. That's the thing, is like, we didn't know that Rhodey was a Skrull, right? And so he has a confrontation with Nick Fury.
The initial confrontation.
Right. And he's talking about, you're trying to tell me that little green men have taken over the fucking world. You are full of shit. You are over the hill. We all know that you've been fucking off to some space satellite somewhere. You're fucked. And you like, again, this guy hasn't had anything to do really since Winter Soldier. Like, we saw him in shit like Captain Marvel at the end with the blips and everything, or sorry, in Avengers at the end during the blip, but we don't actually know what he was doing because S.H.I.E.L.D's already broken up. So I don't even know what the fuck he was supposed to be up to, because after Winter Soldier, in terms of the movies, he doesn't show up in movies anymore, right? He's not in Black, like, remember there was a big thing about how Nick Fury isn't in Black Panther. What's he doing now? And we don't know. All we know is he gets dusted and he calls Captain Marvel right before he gets dusted with the beeper. That's all we know that he was up to, unless you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Even that, we don't really know what he was doing. So yeah, there's no reason why he would even think that, like, he's the guy who's running the disgraced agency that was compromised by Hydra. There's no reason why Rhodey would want to buddy up with his ass. He's not done anything of value in all those years aside from pull up the helicarrier at Age of Ultron. So yeah, it's like, I'm not here to fucking support you. Just because we're both black guys doesn't mean I'm going to fucking throw away my career to save you. You never did shit for me. What did Rhodey ever have to do with Nick Fury in the movies, right? They don't have a connection. So I thought that was actually cool. It's like, yeah, Rhodey was the guy who was the hard ass, who was always military, always, the government guy, the liaison. He was the guy who was always trying to get Tony to do the right thing. He was the guy who stole Tony's suit during Iron Man 2 to take to the government because he felt like Iron Man had gotten out of control and the government needed to have the suit to rein him in and shit. So yeah, it makes perfect sense that he would turn on Nick Fury. That's interesting development where you've got two characters that are having a conflict because they have different agendas, different motivations, different worldviews. And Nick Fury's trying to play the race card, and Rhodey's like, fuck you. You ain't my brother. You might be a black man, but I'm not about this shit. And then he turns out to be a Skrull. It's like, well, that was like the one interesting thing in this entire show was this conflict with these two guys. And one of them's just secretly an evil green alien. So I guess it doesn't matter
Except
anymore.
It wasn't secret at all, because he was really hamming up. Because I know he's like, I'm not going to act like Rhodey because this is a Skrull pretending to be Rhodey. So he was like sassy.
Yeah.
He was like really sassing it up, dude. I'm like, Don Cheadle, let's take it down a notch, dude. Where he was really anyway.
But I think that was good. I mean,
It was good to an
yeah.
extent.
Yeah.
But then it gets into some weird shit where, they're trying to get Nick Fury's Skrull wife to kill him. And I'm like, Rhodey is alone in a room with him a dozen times over these 6 episodes when he could just fucking shoot him in the face.
Right.
They're fucking Skrulls. He could say, Nick Fury attacked me because I fired him.
Like,
He's
Nick
a
Fury-
disgruntled ex-employee.
He breaks that one guy's arm and gets away. It's like, why was that guy ever a human being? Why wasn't that guy a Skrull? It doesn't even make any sense.
No, but that scene is even weird. So that's in the hospital, right?
No,
That was
that's
earlier
in the-
on. Later on, they're in the hospital when the president's in one of the rooms because he's been shot, and like Nick even like whispered to him on the gurney, "Don't trust James Rhodes."
Yeah, but
or
he's
something
also
like that.
unconscious,
But he's
so-
unconscious,
yeah.
right? And I was like, that never comes back. So you were hoping that he was like, I heard him the whole time. No, it was just he
He's
just
an idiot,
weirdly whispered to him, and they left that in the show for some reason.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like the whole thing where it's like they think that Nick Fury's going after Gareth or whatever his name was, Gravik, right? And so then you have them say, no, actually he's coming for you. And so then Olivia
I
Colman's
might have
character-
called the British Australian Skrull guy Gravik earlier on accident.
Yeah.
And I apologize.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. He was in Captain Marvel, and he
The
was
Captain
in
Marvel
Stinger
Skrull guy.
from Home, one of the Spider-Man movies. He's nothing. I like Ben Mendelsohn. I think that he's good. He was one of the best parts of Captain Marvel. That movie sucks though. But like, so Nick Fury's supposed to be in Russia going after Gravik, but instead he's actually going to the hospital to get at the president. So it's like, but they think he's in Russia going after Gravik. So why do they have Olivia Colman's character, who is supposed to be a descendant of the speedster chick Spitfire, I think her name was, from the Invaders, which is like, wow, this is a real fucking reach. But anyway, so they have her tell Rhodey that Nick's coming for him, so they can circle the wagons, and then her and Nick Fury have to start taking these guys out, or you could just not tell them that he's coming. It doesn't make any fucking sense why you would tell them that he was coming. You could just take these guys out without them knowing, because they think he's in Russia, except that it's a dramatic, deal like, ooh, he's a badass, he's coming to raid the hospital. It makes no narrative sense whatsoever. And then, of course, like you said, the president doesn't necessarily believe Nick Fury until Nick Fury shoots Skrull Rhodey in the head, and they see the purple blood. And what does that accomplish? Nothing. He saves the president. Again, they get
doesn't that then convince him to call off the nuke attack on what? It's like whatever, dude. Remember they were gonna nuke
because
the
then he goes on and
Skrulls.
says, "Hey, we got to get all these Skrulls off the planet," and then you have total fucking chaos and people getting gunned down in the streets and shit. You're gonna be a one-term president.
Hold on.
Like we keep waiting for something to happen to the president, and we know Harrison Ford's going to become the president in the next Captain America movie. He's going to be fucking Thunderbolt Ross, President Thunderbolt Ross. So it's like we know this guy's not going to stick around, but you don't even do anything to the fucking president because just carry on.
So, but that scene in the hospital is so stupid.
Yeah.
Because like it's the president of the United States, and Nick Fury just like walks onto the floor.
Yeah.
Outlaw Nick Fury. Mm-hmm. They don't show him like sneaking. He's just there. He takes Rhodey at gunpoint with all of his like security guards there, and he's like trying to convince him that he's a Skrull or whatever.
Then he's darting all the Secret Service guys, but then he whips out his real gun for Rhodey. It's like, you could
but then he like lets Rhodey go,
right?
And like goes around a corner, and then there's suddenly like all these people there with guns, and I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like none of this makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
And then that whole scene where they're wheeling the president around on the gurney,
Yeah.
and it's just like this is like silly.
Yeah.
This is really it's really bad. And at that point I'm like feeling bad for Don Cheadle, and I'm feeling bad for Samuel L. Jackson, except they're not doing themselves any favors in the show. So it was just not good. So then they get to
you mentioned that. Go ahead.
But then they unveil this whole harvest, which doesn't even get mentioned really. It gets like lightly mentioned, but they don't actually tell you what the harvest is until episode 5. Like the episode's almost over, and they tell you.
Well, okay, they've been inferring. Okay, so for starters, the first episode sets up that the Skrulls are immune to radiation, and so they're like living in Chernobyl, basically. And so they're trying to set up where they're gonna, since they don't have they were promised a Skrull home world by Fury, despite the entire fucking universe existing and all these fucking planets existing in the Marvel universe. Somehow, him and Captain Marvel combined aren't able to find one planet where the Skrulls can be, probably because of this warlike race. But sometimes he knows that, and sometimes he doesn't. And so they're going to start World War III and take over the Earth. And so the insinuation is they're going to nuke everything, and since they can survive in the nuke-irradiated world, that's how they're going to take over. They never actually explicitly say that, though. And I realize that, okay, you can have some ambiguity, but it doesn't, like, they never really state that goal. It's implied, but it's never actually stated. And you're like, they're going to start World War III and they're going to take over. It's like, well, how is it that they're going to be able to take over? They never say, oh, because we're going to irradiate the Earth and we can live in radiation. And it's like, you got got to say that at some point. You can't just imply it and we're supposed to figure it out, with something like this, with this kind of stuff. With the Super Skrull stuff, they were setting that up where they kept talking about, we have these genetic samples from this guy, this guy, this guy, but we're trying to find the harvest and we're not finding the full breadth. And then, of course, they set up that he's got powers because they show him do Groot shit. And then, of course, they introduce Ben Mendelsohn's daughter, played by Daenerys Targaryen, and she's supposed to get killed partway through. And you're like, oh, well, she can't be dead because we're only halfway through the show and she's one of the stars. And sure enough, yeah, she managed in like a moment's time to activate the Super Skrull program and get the extremis in her. And so she can heal just like Garrett, the main villain, can heal. And so even though she gets shot in the heart, and we've seen like people not come back from like mortal wounds, like they get shot in like the chest or something, but not like through the brain or the heart because that's supposed to actually kill them. But she comes back. So we know that they're creating Super Skrulls, and they're obviously harvesting DNA in order to do that because they keep making these references to people. We just don't know that there's a harvest that Nick Fury's put together with all the Avengers and shit. That's the only thing they hold off on until the end. But we know they're doing this stuff. So it's not like that big of a reveal because we've already seen them do.
But the reveal...
He's got the extremis. He's got Groot powers.
The reveal was that this Gravik guy was on the Skrull team with Nick Fury.
Right,
and after the in-game fight, they went out and they got all the... Which is like pretty fucking scummy to go out and collect blood
But it's
samples.
also a very Nick Fury thing to do.
Right.
I have a problem with that.
Which is why 100% that should have been the first scene of the first episode. It should have been a flashback to the post in-game fight where Fury and these team of Skrulls are talking about collect the DNA. Let's get the DNA. And you'd be like, ooh, they did some fucked up shit. Instead, I typed it 7 minutes left in episode 5 of a 6 episode show. The last episode is 30 minutes long.
Yeah.
That's when they make that reveal. And I'm like, that should have been revealed 5 episodes ago.
Yeah.
That should have been the opening scene to set the stage for this fucking harvest that nobody knew. Who fucking cares about this harvest? What, they're trying to get Thor DNA or some stupid... Because that's like really dumb superhero-y stuff. The gross part is that Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. intentionally went out and collected these DNA samples from a war zone, right? That's like where it could have been like a little gross, like typical gross dark S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff. And then they totally just whiffed on that and just mentioned it at the very end.
Yeah.
So I thought that was dumb.
Well, and we got to get back to, okay, so while in the 5-year period, and again, Marvel is still paying the price for this stupid idea. So there's this 5-year period where most of the heroes are gone, including Nick Fury. And in this 5-year period, Talos, the Ben Mendelsohn character, invites 1 million Skrulls to join the 30 or so that were already here. So they can turn, so it's like...
Talos.
Talos is the guy's name, yeah. And also we find out over the course of the series that Nick Fury had taken the 30 or so guys that had come from Captain Marvel and talked them into being spies for him until they had their own homeworld. And they make it clear, Talos especially, is like, you wouldn't be Nick Fury if we hadn't built that for you. And so there's another opportunity for you to go, oh no, actually he is Nick Fury and he was more than just these Skrull guys. They never fucking do that. No. In fact, it's imperative that he has contact with a Skrull for the resolution of the series. So they just emphasize that Nick Fury ain't shit. And the only reason he ever did anything of value was because he had Skrulls all over the place to set everything up for him. Now again, I watched 7 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I saw Phil Coulson do a whole bunch of cool shit and keep the S.H.I.E.L.D. brand alive and everything else. And then to find out that Nick Fury wasn't doing anything, it was just the Skrulls doing everything for him, that puts Nick Fury below Phil Coulson, this tertiary character, really. That's fucked up. And again, going back to Captain Marvel, we were joking about Torpid. We're talking about how he's supposed to be playing a character younger than he was before Iron Man, and yet you see this old man waddling around. It's like, couldn't you have fucking gotten a young guy to do the running and just pasted his face on this guy instead of having Sam Jackson wheezing around when he's supposed to be 20 years younger? And then he's 6-7 years older than he was when he did Captain Marvel. He's fat, he's old, he's slow, and it's just like sad. It's like watching like the later Chuck Bronson movies, where the guy just sort of walks out and fires a grenade at somebody, it's like, it's just pathetic. And I hate seeing Sam Jackson in that state. And I don't know if he's being told to underact and to be the broken Nick Fury, or he's just gotten too fucking old for this shit. But it's just sad watching him do stuff and be so ineffectual. And the show is just constantly undercutting him besides. Like, he doesn't accomplish anything. I think that the Olivia Colman character, where she's doing stuff like where she helps to, like, she chops off a Skrull finger to determine that it's a Skrull and to torture him to get information out of him. And she's the one who shoots a guy in the leg to reveal that he's a Skrull and get information out of him. I think that those scenes were written for Nick Fury. And they couldn't get Sam Jackson to fucking run around and shoot the guns and shit. And so they just let her do the stuff.
Let her do it.
And because
she was good in the show.
She's exuberant and she's just this nasty character, right? She's doing the kind of shit you'd expect Nick Fury to do, and she's not. And so she's the interesting character. You want to watch the show about her. You don't want to watch the show about Nick Fury. But then at the end of the show, Nick Fury gives her this information dump, and then she just becomes his sidekick. Like, she's been this person who's been very driven, and you don't know what she's up to, and you don't know if she's on the right side or not, and she's doing all this unethical fucking Guantanamo type shit to the Skrulls. And then in the end, she's just like, oh, well, I'll be your helper now. And she basically disappears for most of the rest of the series. Instead of, and in no way, like, Nick Fury decides at the end of the miniseries that he's going to give the harvest to Gravik. And it's like, she's like, okay. And it's like, no, shouldn't you be like shooting Nick Fury in the knee and taking the fucking harvest and making absolutely certain that that gets nowhere near Gravik? And like, then you call the fucking Avengers because Nick Fury's refusing to do that? Where are you with the Secret Warriors and shit? It's just like that character exists and they set her up to be something that's going to be cool. And again, it's a situation where she should be at odds with Nick Fury by the end of this thing. And instead she's just like, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. I'll go raid the hospital and help you fucking shoot the Skrull and protect the U.S. president. What? That's not, is that who you were supposed to be? Because that's not the impression I was getting the whole series. Fucking awful.
So what about the final scene where the president goes full Fox News?
Yeah. Well, but we haven't even talked about the actual battle though. So they have the whole setup where you're going to have the final reckoning. I guess that's where the 200
million was.
Yeah, we're between Nick Fury and Gravik, and he's in Russia, and he looks like he's dying from radiation poisoning. And then Gravik gets the harvest, and he turns himself into a Super Skrull. And instead of just outright killing Fury immediately, he lets Fury be around while he activates the Super Skrull powers. And it just turns out that Fury is actually the daughter of Talos. Again, another guy they killed off, and he's a Skrull. So you're like, well, maybe he's going to come back. Well, he doesn't come back. And then you got his daughter, who 5 minutes earlier was working with the terrorists, who has repeatedly rejected calls to be part of the Nick Fury team or the U.S. team or the whatever the fuck. But her dad dies, and so she's looking for revenge against the guy who killed her dad. That doesn't mean her worldview has changed, but they put her in a position where she becomes Super Skrull. They have that ridiculous battle.
Her worldview did change because then she snitched on one of their plans and got it busted. That was
right. But then when Talos tries to bring her back into the fold and is like, well, and again, Talos looks horrible too. We're going to earn the respect of the U.S. president by saving him and saving the world, and then they're going to give us a place to be. It's like, you're full of shit. That's not going to happen. Nick Fury told you that's not going to happen. I know that's not going to fucking happen. We've been here for 30 fucking years waiting for that shit to happen. That ain't going to happen. So she gets to be a Super Skrull. They have a battle. For no reason, she's able to use the powers more effectively than the other guy who's had powers for a while, and she just got the Extremis recently. She manages to kill that guy, and of course there's the horrible CGI. There's no reason, like, she's got Drax powers and also the tattoos that go with it. Just like, there's all kinds of shit.
Well, and
it looks horrible.
He was even doing the Maw's powers.
Yeah.
So they got Maw DNA,
right?
And now he just
even though he's got rings that
and now he can do magic,
right?
And it's like, what?
But
like,
yeah,
this.
And again, why does it like blasting him with heat vision and that's what kills him? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. But also now you have a Super Skrull that's running around who's randomly working with the British government at the end of it all. But more importantly, Emilia Clarke is not a good actress.
No.
She was okay as Daenerys, but obviously by the end we were like, oh really? You know, she couldn't sell the heel turn. I've seen her in other stuff. She's okay at acting like a regular British chick. But when it comes time to like, I'm a hardened terrorist, like no,
she's got a leather jacket, dude.
She's got a leather jacket. And then like when she's running to fight Gravik and she has this weird little like prancy thing that she's doing at him, it's like, you are not a hardened badass. And again, it's another one of these situations where it's like,
she's got the fatigues pants on and military boots.
We've built up how much power she's got, but no personality. And it's like, this is Captain Marvel over again. This is the Eternals all over again, where it's like, yeah, you have a lot of power, but I don't know who you are, and what I know about you I'm not finding appealing, and you're not well acted, and I don't believe you in action sequences. Why is it that we keep powering up these people but we're not developing their characters, and like, oh, these are going to be ongoing characters, maybe she's going to be an Avengers? Like, what? No, she's not. No, I don't want to see this character again ever. I don't want her to exist. But that she's like the hero of the sucker story, and she's not even introduced in the first episode, if I remember correctly. I think she comes in like in the second episode,
maybe
or so.
The second, and then she disappears for an episode between them.
And since she saves the day, that just makes Nick Fury look completely pathetic. Also, they have the whole thing where she teams, like, Nick Fury's wife decides to betray the Skrulls, but she's like, well, I'm going to stay at the home. If they're going to come after me, they can come after me at my home. So they come after her home, and she's able to repel them in part because she's got the daughter working with her, but then she leaves. It's like, well, why did you bother to wait there in the first place? If you took these guys out and then you're going to leave now, you already took the guys out. You might as well stay there, right? It doesn't even make any fucking sense. It's just so, and again, that's also one of the instances where Emilia Clarke is doing action stuff. It's like, you're really bad at this.
Yeah.
And it's also a situation where it's like Nick Fury's Skrull wife that we just got introduced. Like, there are a bunch of people who are like, she has that great speech in the third episode where I just want to be with somebody and I want to have a romantic partner. And like, it's so heartfelt. It's like, no, they're hard selling this character as being some kind of a big deal. And then she has the betrayal. So I don't believe her in the beginning part because they're hard selling it so much. And then of course she's so interested in the Avengers and all the stuff that he's doing. So it's like, well, clearly she's compromised. They show that she's compromised. She ultimately doesn't kill Nick Fury, but she's still not, like, they were setting up her heel turn and then she doesn't have a heel turn. And I was supposed to be like, oh, it's such a romance for the ages. And at the end, they're kissing, and I don't know if it's a prosthetic or a CGI. What the CGI, especially during the transformations back and forth between being Skrulls and being humans, horrible.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know if she's got a rubber face or what, but when she's kissing Nick Fury, and it's a passionate kiss, which is not what you're looking for when one of your people is green, that's not the direction you want to go with this shit. It's a bad place you guys are going to with this shit. It looks so disgusting and weird, and like, I don't understand why any of that happened.
Yeah, the whole subplot with the wife thing, I was like, man, I'm trying to follow this.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
I'm
we're
just
going
not...
through, like, we kept waiting for, like, the Countess to show up, who in the comic books is one of her main romantic partners. And of course, it's kind of cool if she goes to, like, kind of the dark side of the Black Ops and stuff, and he's, like, trying to be a good guy, and they have that conflict and stuff. And instead, it's like this weird random wife chick that they just introduced, and, like, they hard sell her in the episode where she's also supposed to turn into the bad guy. It's just like, what?
This came out of nowhere.
And, like, I think the actress is okay. I think she's extremely one note, though. It's like she's you don't see her, she just keeps playing it the same way every single scene. Like when
even when they're being attacked by people,
even when they're being attacked, even when she's conspiring with Skrull Rhodey, she's just like the exact same performance in every single scene. So like I don't see the duplicity there because she's just so the same throughout this thing. It's just horrible.
Yeah, and we what do you call it? So that was not good. And I noticed that like nobody in this show knows how to hold a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Like Talos at one point in one of the earlier episodes, it's like a weird like 90-degree thing. I think it's like what? And then the old lady's holding guns, and I'm like, this just is. None of these people should be in this show.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, that's why there's no action in this show, because you're all too old to do it, and you obviously have no clue what the hell you're doing. It was just like
or incompetent.
Or
Emilia Clarke is plenty young enough. She was in a Terminator movie,
sure,
which flopped because she can't do action.
Right.
And then they make her the star of Secret Invasion in the long term. And of course, you have the fool who thought that they were going to tie into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's like, you guys, no, that's not, absolutely not.
And you don't want it anyway.
You don't want it anyway, not for this show. But also, one of the things they point out, I think that they even mentioned it in the honest trailers for it, is like they had this shit where people are being replaced by imposters on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 4, like probably the best season of the show, and it's done so much better than this. And this is by the point where people had given up on the show, and like only the hardcore people were still with it. And like this is the $220 million miniseries on Disney Plus, and it's just completely incompetent by comparison to what they were doing on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to show that everybody makes fun of and abandoned after the first season.
Yeah, and then at the very end, there was the whole, he actually radicalized the president with the xenophobia against the aliens. And then
ultimately, and again, it's been pointed out elsewhere, it makes everything worse.
Yeah.
And then fucks off without resolving it all.
Yeah.
How about the fact that, like...
But look, so then I said, that should have been the opening scene. Mm-hmm. The opening scene should have been a radicalized president having hillbillies run onto sets, and they're clubbing innocent people and finding the occasional Skrull, because then that's a very They Live vibe.
Yeah. Well, not just that, that's a very modern, like post 9/11. That's invaders coming from across the border. Like that paranoia is very present.
Open borders or no borders.
Yeah. So, but they're so averse to doing anything remotely controversial or interesting that it's just like something they throw into the last few minutes and probably will not address in the Marvels. Probably will not address in New World Order. Nothing's probably going to come of that shit.
So in the very first, in that episode 5, I'm like, that's how it should have started. It should have started with Gravik and Nick Fury collecting DNA samples to hide in a bunker from his alleged friends or whatever. And that could have been this, like him, when Rhodey finds out he was collecting DNA from people, that could have been
right, why they had the conflict.
Right. Instead, we find out at the very end. And then we get the radicalized president and the xenophobia from the American public, or the public all over the world, shooting people in the face, and it turns out they're actual humans. And I'm like, that's how the show should have started.
Right.
That's the real side effects of this.
Is that really Maria Hill? Is this really Martin Freeman's character?
It's a secret, and you could have some guy going, it's a secret invasion, or whatever, as he's, he kills himself or whatever in the street or whatever, because he finds out his wife was it could have been like They Live, right? And instead it was this weird talkie show for 4.5 episodes.
Like show don't tell. Like I know it's COVID conditions, but we're showing them 20 years earlier, 30 years earlier, where they're in a room talking about becoming spies. And it's like, well, no, you spent all this money on the show. Show us at the end of Endgame where they're collecting the samples, like you said. Yeah. It's like, and now ground this show very much in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. No, it's like you have it's 1990, and we're a bunch of people in a room talking.
Yeah.
Show don't tell.
Show Gravik, Talos, Nick, and they're picking up shreds shreds of costume, or they're pulling, the Maw's arm out of a pit, putting it in like a cryogenic freezer. Show me the icky stuff that you guys are fucking doing to make this so gross. This harvest. Did you get the harvest? It even sounds gross. And instead it's just like so bad. But the fact that it even kind of had some, and then like the whole thing with the extremists even existing in this right after we did an Iron Man 3 podcast. I'm like, did they need to do this? This is a Hail Mary attempt to connect this to a movie that might have had some heat at some point. And then, like you said, Rhodey's not paralyzed, and it's like,
well, yeah, and William Sadler's still around. They could have brought back, and you'd have the continuity. So, William Sadler's back. Oh, but he's a virulent racist now, or he's a virulent serial. He's paranoid because his vice president was trying to kill him and take his position. No, they don't do any of that stuff.
No.
They just get Dermot Mulroney instead. It's like,
no, and yeah, like
this president we've never seen before and will not see again.
Just the whole show was just a mess. The show was just a mess, and I don't know what they've obviously. This thing's been in the can for a while. It feels like they had a long time to fix this show, and it was just
and what's weird to me too, like one of the shows that they talk about a lot as being the worst Disney Plus show was Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and like the opening action sequence where he's going up against the helicopters over like Afghanistan or wherever. That action sequence at the very opening minutes is better than anything that happens in Secret Invasion.
Yeah, by like a long
way
shot.
Less kind to that show than they were to this show when it was first getting started. This show was, I didn't hate it when I was watching each individual episode, but it was just so there. It was so inert. And it's like Falcon and Winter Soldier was so much better than this. Like you've got the stuff with the Contessa, you've got the stuff with a U.S. agent and him going rogue and chopping the guy's head off, and you've got the interactions between Isaiah Bradley and the crimes of the United States and this reckoning. The fact that the basic plot is the same between the two shows, and it's so much more inferior in the latter show than it was in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I don't understand why anybody would give this show a.
Well, I think the expectations were still higher when that show came out, and the expectations are quite a bit
but that's a much
now.
better show and should be better regarded compared to this shit. It was just so flat. So there's another thing too is the director came out and he was talking a bunch of shit about how actually Rhodey's been replaced since the blip, and so when he's in game and he's like there with Tony when he's dying and shit, that was actually the Skrull and stuff. And it's like that's a real stretch, and it also kind of ruins previous movies, and you don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
But also it had that same sweaty desperation of The Rock trying to tell you that Black Adam was a hit, of Zachary Levi trying to get people to no go see Captain Marvel. It's like I would say that the number one person responsible for this being a shit show is the director, because I think he's trying to emulate like BBC thrillers, spy thrillers, and he's doing that ineffectively. He has the budget to look better and to do more effective stuff, but instead he's like, oh, we're gonna have Nick Fury come out of a shaft of light at the beginning and then another shaft of light at the end. Shit that X-Files did with spotlights in the 90s. Like it feels like such a War of the Worlds like syndicated TV show kind of shit to have. Well, it's just the shaft of light he shows up in. The fact that I spent all those years watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and seeing that S.H.I.E.L.D. still exists at the end of that show, and yet I gotta deal with all this sword shit or whatever the fuck they're calling this stuff, like completely ignoring that S.H.I.E.L.D. still exists. Everybody cared about S.H.I.E.L.D. Even when it collapsed, they still cared about S.H.I.E.L.D. Nobody gives a fuck about sword. Nobody gives a fuck about all these alphabet agencies that they're coming up with. The action is nothing. It's terrible action. The deaths have no weight. You don't believe anything that's happening. So that comes to the director, and then the director's going to get out here. It's like, oh, but look at this thing that makes my thing more important than it seemed at the time, or we're all going to ignore it because nobody liked this shit.
Yeah,
and you're just going to forget this ever happened. The writing was not good either, but I think that a good director could have sold. Oh my God, they killed Maria Hill, but it was so flat, and the performances were so poor, and I really think that's down to him because I don't know. So many of the actors were doing such a bad job. It's hard for me to believe that they were all bad actors. Sam Jackson is in this. I expect a lot better from Sam Jackson, so I have to assume the director told him to underplay it and to oversell being over the hill and not being an effective agent anymore. So the whole show is like that. It comes down to him. It comes down to how he shot it and how ineffective he was at selling the drama, but also the writing's terrible. The acting's not good. The special effects are awful. It's just like, this is so phase 4 and it's down to its bones, down to its soul. Basically, what I feel, I honestly, for me, Secret Invasion is a bit of a vindication because I've been saying this was where things were going to go since Endgame, especially all that blip shit. And boy, this is just like the most phase 4. It's not even part of phase 4. This is the most phase 4 thing that exists. Like, at least there was some interesting, weird gonzo ideas in the Eternals. I would honestly say Eternals was a more interesting movie than this. This is like the worst thing. This is like the worst. And it really is the epitome of Marvel's failings to do anything since Endgame of real value in advancing their universe.
Yeah, I think I think this is going to be this and She-Hulk. The reactions to them, even though like we like She-Hulk,
we love She-Hulk, and honestly, and there was definitely a fan following for She-Hulk. I think She-Hulk is one of those things, kind of like Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where it may be a minority of the audience, but the people who love She-Hulk really fucking love it and really talk it up. And I don't know if we're going to get a season 2 or not.
I just think it's getting to the point where, and like they turned Armor Wars is now going to be a movie that I think they're going to probably be like, we got to stop all these fucking like we're diluting this property.
And Bob Iger's already talked about that. Like I don't know what the slate looks like going forward. They bumped Avengers back a year, the next Avengers movie. I still don't know who those Avengers are going to be. I don't think they know who those Avengers are going to be.
Yeah,
we've gone from Joss Whedon to the Russo brothers to the guy who did Shang-Chi is going to do these next couple of movies. And I'm sorry, Shang-Chi wasn't such a triumph that it's like, give this guy the keys to the Avengers. It just feels like they've run off all the auteurs, they've run off all the people who have a vision, and it's just these journeyman guys. And I really feel like we're looking at a bunch more movies that are going to be directed by Secret Invasion level people.
Yeah.
And like, that's why I'm actually kind of excited for the DCU going forward, because if James Gunn's going out and getting guys like James Mangold to work on this shit, or just Gunn himself working on stuff, I see a lot more promise in what they've got coming up than I see where Marvel's going, because, you know, all the shit, all the problems they've had with their actors, all the problems they're having with their features, just the lack of direction, the fact that we're already all sick of the multiverse, and we've got fucking Loki coming up, which is going to be multiversey, and we got 2 Avengers movies that are going to be all multiversey, and God only knows what else. I could not care less about all that shit. And we're going into the Avengers movies in a really bad place. Like, I'm actually excited for the next few projects they got coming up. I'm really excited for Captain America. I'm excited for Thunderbolts, because they're going to get into the spy shit. And they're going to get into the Dark Avengers stuff and all that.
No, they're not. Why on earth are you like in any way optimistic in that kind of stuff? I could not give a shit less for Thunderbolts. Captain America, I'm going to see it. I'm not excited about Captain America.
Yeah, but we've got Betty Brant's coming back. We've got Thunderbolt Ross. We've got the Serpent Society.
I'm not excited about Armor Wars.
And I still have some excitement about that too.
No, it's going to be what we just saw. They're going to spend they're going to maybe get $30 extra million for budget for that movie. It's going to look like a WB show, which you can't do an Iron Man movie looking like a WB show.
Yeah.
Like the early Iron Man stuff holds up because they spent like real money and got real people to do everything they could to make that armor look as believable as possible. But Iron Man costs
so much less than Secret Invasion.
I know.
It's not the money. It's like you said, the effects and the vision.
Yeah.
And the fact that you had guys like Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. reading all the comic books and absorbing that shit and coming up with new stuff, riffing on that stuff, and just being really talented people. And then they're replacing those people with fucking Emilia Clarke.
Yeah,
you know?
and they're going to put them in big green rooms with dots on them.
Right.
And somebody from Marvel Corporate.
What is that shit called?
Disney
the
Corporate.
Volume?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a huge
somebody
mistake.
at Disney Corporate is going to yell lines they have to say through a fucking earpiece because we don't have time for you to learn a script, so we're going to just dictate it to you. And then it's going to be cut. We got it in one take. We don't have enough money to do multiple takes. You got it in one take. We'll fix it in post. We'll rubber band you around to do what we want you to do.
It's not the money, though. It really isn't the money. It's the time and the talent. They've got money.
I think some
look
of
at
it's
all
going
the
to
money
be
they
money.
threw at this shit, but they didn't take the time and they didn't have the talent, and it sucked. And most of this stuff sucks. I'm pretty sure the Marvel's going to probably suck pretty hard too. They got to get some people with some fucking vision, and they're surrounded by these yes men, and there was this big talk about how we dissolved Ike Perlmutter's involvement, and we dissolved the council of people like Bendis and stuff. They were like telling them what to do with the movies, and now you've got nothing but these shitty Disney exec guys who are coming up with what's supposed to be happening, and it sucks.
Yeah.
So they were cheering themselves. Look at this great stuff we did. I'm looking at the Marvel Studios shows, and I'm looking at the stuff that came before that. It's like Daredevil was so much better than any of this shit. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was so much better than any of this shit. It's just like I'm not saying we go back to Ike Perlmutter necessarily, but the direction they're in now isn't a direction.
But the problem, though, and I've said this before, is that they got like this trifecta jackpot where they absolutely nailed the casting. If you reboot these things at any point, which I think that would be the best thing to do, is just say we're shutting all this shit down.
Yeah,
we're shutting it all down. Thanos comes back. We're gonna animate it. We're gonna animate the end of the fucking universe. He kills everyone. It's now over.
Yeah.
And then it ends in like a big bang where you go into some fucking Stan Lee's there, and he sees his butthole, and you fly into it, and it's now you're in some new multiverse. And it's
I'll tell you what they do. They end the multiverse saga in Deadpool 3. Deadpool just like shoots Kang, and then that's the end of it, and then we just move fucking on.
That's it. That's it. Let's
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
But then you got to go pick new actors. But now you're not picking at us. You're not doing some like our tour. We're making a comic book movie, like a serious one. Let's get Robert Downey Jr. and he doesn't really know what to think, but he's going to take a risk and do it. And instead it's like everyone knows. So the people picking these actors, it's not going to be the same shit.
Yeah.
There's no way they're getting it again. So even if you start it from scratch and we get Steve Rogers back and Tony Stark back and we get all these guys all over again, we get a new Nick Fury and stuff, it's going to be this weird, we know the old one existed and it's going to influence who we pick for this one. And then you're going to have the fans who are going to be like, I want Robert Downey Jr. back. I don't like, who's
They're going to get the guy from Cameo that does the Downey Jr. impression.
Yeah, we're going to get the Twilight guy from Batman,
Yeah.
Robert Pattinson, and I'm going to get Ben Affleck to be Captain America, but he's going to be old Captain America. You know what I mean? Like, I can just hear the people arguing about it, and I fucking hate it. And then I just want them to just stop making this shit altogether.
Yeah.
Don't make any of it anymore, because the more the shit you make, the more it's making me not want to go back
What you just told me
and watch the movies I like.
you're watching the Marvel Universe become the DC.
It's becoming the DC
Yeah.
universe. Yeah. If they have to start rebooting these things, which they're not rebooting, they're just saying like they're gone. So now we have your new Hulk is She-Hulk. Your new Captain America is Sam Wilson. Your new, which is like, I give them credit for at least trying that and not just rebooting,
Right.
but it's not working.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to see movies with these characters. I just don't care. Sorry.
Yeah.
Even Paul Rudd. Like, you made me not like Paul Rudd anymore.
Right.
So
that's a real.
although I think I'm on record saying I'm not a huge Paul Rudd fan, but because his shtick is kind of the same shtick all the time. But yeah, now he's floating head Paul Rudd, and it's like, this isn't. I'm not about this either.
Yeah.
So anyway, shut this shit down.
Can't believe we managed an hour on goddamn Secret Invasion. This was supposed to be a segment on a magazine. This was not supposed to be a whole fucking show. God damn it! Fuck.
Hey, go watch Secret Invasion.
Don't.
Oh, I mean, don't watch Secret Invasion. Sorry, that's what I meant.
Permanent Marvelite Maximus followers include Ambassador Krzyzewski, Aubrey Class, Beverly Deniston, Christine VTuber Artist, Demetrius Christman, Harlow Zablinski, Jeff Times 11, Chloe Patron, Manuel Hernandez, Marin Barras, Mujahid Thakur, Nikoshi Equals All Good, Quinta Opiniel, Sasha Van Sice, Taylor Holmes, and Twanda Snowden. WordPress True Believers include Del Dracula, Kyle Benning, and Pragmatic Gollum. Keepers of the Favorites Flame include Artificial Twins, Billet Spy Vinyl, Capital Gain Income, Chris Dunford, Chuck Daddy 64, Critzbull the Rainbow Knight, Dean Hacker, Gregory Litchfield, Heroes United, Isabella, who specifically liked Marvel Superheroes Podcast episode 126. That would be Marvel Studios Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania 2023. I still not seen that, by the way. Julia Raoul Rainbow Edition, Kitos 2, Lori Miller Art and Music Creator, Mad Dragon, Mark Bromage, Max Romero, Max Apocalypse, Nick Spence, Nucky 777, Chi Sakurabi Project, Ak9J3XDALBSCGC, Rihanna Mike, RX Farhan, September Rains, Shanna Banana, Sean M. Myers, Speaker of the House Kirk Spencer, Tim Price, and William Voyage. Retweet frantic ones include Between the Pages blog, CH, Nathaniel Devon Mason Sanford, Relatively Geeky Podcast Network, and Talk Nerdy to Me. Among the enough sayers were Canoes, who wrote, Thanks at Rolled Spine. I was thinking about Iron Man 3 after seeing the extremist technology in Secret Invasion. It was a brilliant movie. Del Dracula wrote, I was going to rewatch Iron Man 3 after catching up on Secret Invasion, but I think you guys talked me out of it. Keith G. Baker wrote, Iron Man 2 is 10 times the movie Iron Man 3 tried to be. Dan Mimbiello wrote, Wow, I love that cover treatment, referring to Paulo Siqueira's artwork that was used as the album art and was given away to the cast and crew as a poster. Dan continues, Can't find it online. Is that art you had done for the episode? Pretty sure I like that piece more than my memory of the actual movie. Billy Hines wrote, of the podcast, Warning contains opinions. I think I'm a simple man. My takeaway from Iron Man 2, which I saw once, was Mickey Rourke whipping racing cars. Iron Man 3, just once, again, was the, I think, great reveal around the Mandarin 3, so 3 wins it for me.
Face front, true believers, the Merry Marching Society of the Marvel Superhero Podcast.
Billy Hines, Canoes, Chris Lydon, Dan Mimbiella, Dave's Comic Heroes blog, Divinity Rising, Dr. Irving Forbush, Dirk Ashton is finally finishing Kraken Rider Z, who added Thanks Roll Spine Podcast, Ed Moore, Eugene R. Hendricks, Voice Actor Home Studio, The Hammer Strikes, Random Geeky Stuff, History of Comics on Film, I Was Joe Is, The Irredeemable Shag, JMT Productions, Keith G. Baker, Ladies of Mischief Wrestling Fan Page and Gaming, Melda Rosica, Randy Caldwell, Richard Field, Satin Tights, A Wonder Woman Podcast, Superbound, and Tony S. Endure and Survive.
This has been a non-for-profit fan production from Rolled Spine Podcast. Any copyrighted material presented herein are presumed covered under fair use, with no infringement intended.
When you want to build something, you need a strong foundation. Now, you know how few people I trust, Coulson.
You can count them on one hand.
And I'm not afraid to cut off fingers. The principle S.H.I.E.L.D. was founded upon was pure.
Protection.
Protection. One word. Sometimes to protect one man against himself, other times to protect the planet against an alien invasion from another universe. It's a broad job description.
No need to tell me.
But the belief that drives us all is the same, whether it's one man or all mankind.
That they're worth saving.
That truth lives inside you, Coulson. Before it was torn apart, S.H.I.E.L.D. was a lot of moving parts. But guys like you were the heart. Now, you'll be the head.
What is it?
Toolbox to help you build it back up.
You want me to start over? Rebuild S.H.I.E.L.D.
From scratch. Take your time and do it right. You'll still have his back.
Of course.
There's no one else I'd trust with this.
Thank you, sir. How should I proceed?
That's up to you, Director.
And you, sir? Where are you heading now?
I'm trading in my bird's eye view for 2 solid feet on the ground. This is the last time you'll be seeing me for a stretch.
You're gonna disappear. Nowhere to be found.
Nowhere? You know me better than that, Phil. I'll be everywhere.